Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another episode of Gatekeepers. Tonight, we are going to be talking about alignment and why, at least in my opinion, I've perceived so much hatred or just disdain from wanting to use alignments in your tabletop role-playing games. I can tell by Connell's eye rollings, he's in the latter category. Personally, I like them. They're not mandatory in some games. Some games they don't exist at all. And we're going to discuss why that might be the case. Personally, I have a theory, but I'm going to try and avoid my actual opinion and see what you guys think and see what the people in the comment section have to say about it. Let me see if I can pull up my questions because I'm running just a little bit behind today. What the heck? Come on, Gatekeepers. What are you doing?
Well, while you're doing that,
There.
I'm going to be posting the link to the actual Gatekeepers event for the YouTube link anyway.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
So how you guys doing today? Everything running smooth?
No, but if it did, I'd want to know what to do.
I get that. Jade, you good?
Yeah, things are going all right. Put another day into work and started work on my bullet journal for my next game. I find that having pen and paper, I exist in the digital world quite often with a lot of my game prep notes and such. A lot of my theory craft happens online, mostly through Google Documents. But I do find having pen and paper makes it stick longer in my noggin, to be able to actually physically write it down.
This right here. I mean, it's not full-size legal paper, but this, I think it's yellow. Forgive me. This paper right here and a pen is how I do most of my notes for the games I'm about ready to run or anything else. I mean, I buy them by the pack.
Yeah. I like the personally, I like the really cheap Walmart spiral notebooks. I've got dozens of those. My son does too. And if it's really important, I'll transfer it to something later. But yeah, I'm a big fan of paper and pen myself. It's just easier, it's cheaper, and hey, Travis, welcome to the show. I hope you are enjoying those Arduin books. Same to you, Bo. I hope you've been, nose deep in those books. They are some of my favorites. And Travis, I don't even know what to say about the Knuckles. And Bo, who hates alignments? Apparently, a lot of people do. That's Jade hates them. Conall hates them personally. I think the game would lose a lot of its heroism without them. Not saying that they're hey Legion. I think that they're a useful tool, especially when you're beginning, so that you stick to a certain way of behaving when it comes to being a hero. Now, I know also being a hero is starting to fall by the wayside. Less people know what it actually means, and less people want to actually be the hero. They want to be the bad guy. Well, different tables, different, ways of playing. I'm okay with that. But, if I was to write a game, I would definitely have something like the Palladium's alignment system, where it tells you things that you will and won't do because of your, ethics, values, principles, and morals, which, also seem to be going by the wayside these days, especially if you, pay attention to the younger generations. They seem to really, need those participation trophies and really need those safe spaces. And the idea of, standing up and being a man is just about all but forgotten. And seeing that this is a predominantly male game, or at least it used to be for the most part. I mean, it still is. Even Shadow Dark catered to the male audience. more than the female audience. You can check the art to see the thought process going into that. I'm gonna hit up some of these chats before we get going on to the actual questions. Alignment is an integral part of D&D. Yes, it is.
But does it have to be?
Well, it depends on which
yes.
version you're playing, I guess.
I mean, no one is solely good, nor is no one is solely evil. If you want true immersion for your players to take part in the character, to become the character, how can we force them to be lawful good when the concept of lawful good is at question, at best questionable?
Well, we're getting a lot of people in.
It's not questionable whatsoever. It's a strict adherence to the laws that make a society good and prosperous for everybody.
Laws? The laws of the kingdom? Laws of their deity? Laws are not always a good thing.
Whoever created the universe had to have been at least good entity. Otherwise, it would have only created nothing but suffering and misery for every living creature. That's what an evil being would do. A good being allowed for all possibilities.
Life is suffering. It builds character.
Mactor says, I don't hate alignments, but they are not necessarily holdover from Grognard games. I would never remove them from D&D, but I prefer games without them. And you can encourage heroism without needing alignments. You can try, Max. I have yet to see heroes without it, for the most part, or some sort of code of ethics written somewhere so that they can, remind themselves of it. There's too much gray out there right now, and I'll have no part of it.
Well, considering I'm colorblind, all I see is gray. I'll have more of it.
And Bo says, I don't want alignment. I don't play D20 games.
I don't want alignment. I don't play D20 games. Yeah, I can see that. My comment is the next one.
Yeah,
it's not that I necessarily hate alignment. I hate the way it's been abused and turned by players to mean something that it's not. I've had several players at my table that have done things that are outside of the alignment, or they're supposed to be lawful good paladins, and then suddenly when they go to strike down somebody who's already thrown down their weapon and say, nope, I give up, and then but they strike anyway. Like, well, I'm sorry, you just became a fighter without feats. Like, you're no longer a paladin. The person threw his weapon down and surrendered, and you struck anyway, just because you didn't want to have a prisoner of war. That's evil.
One tiny itsy bitsy problem.
No, there is no problem. No, there is no scruple about that, because as a paladin, a lawful good paladin,
is a paladin of. Now, if you go your
there was no scruple about this.
That's a cop out there. Goodness requires mercy. Goodness requires mercy and hope and redemption.
Mm-hmm.
No,
the whole point of the paladin that the person was playing was, they had come from an entirely different world, and were a world where peace reigned mostly. And they got transported to a world where it was at war for the last 10 years. And you would think a person who lived in a world where peace was possible would be the first person to say, oh, you've thrown down your weapon. You have taken the first step towards peace. Come join me. Instead, no. It's like, your world's at war. I'm just going to end you, to end your war. That is the wrong mentality for a paladin, at least in my estimation. And the god he was worshiping was Pelor. So don't give me the whole, there are scruples. No, there are no scruples here. He followed Pelor, and then he struck down a person who had thrown down their arms to surrender. You're a fighter without feet.
Welcome to the show, Connor. It's already a bit of a certain kind of clusterish situation, but you know what? I knew this when I took the job, and I'm ready for it. That's why I brought up the Palladium system early on. The old D&D alignments were a summed up idea that needed to be extrapolated upon. In the Palladium system, it gives you alignments, and they tell you what that kind of a character would do and would not do for the most part in all of the really questionable situations. Max, if you want to pop in, I'll drop you the link, or Jade could do it, because I know you're also a big fan of Palladium alignments. When you're using a game with alignments, it was very well thought out, giving you a really concise do's and don't list of all the things, and not all of them are 100% mandatory, because people are people, and unless you're on certain extremes of the spectrum, that's the whole point, is that there is a spectrum between good and evil, and even evil characters will not always murder. I mean, they're not running off a computer program where they have to do this or they have to do that. They will choose to decide what's in their ultimate best interest, or the best interest of the situation, or the best interest of their religious beliefs, or their own code of ethics, etc. Yeah, Bo, it's not what they say, it's what they do, because lying is a big part of being evil, and a big part of being selfish, serving one's own needs as opposed to what's good for even sometimes themselves. Let's be honest. Acting out on impulses at the moment. That's why we have a lot of the problems we have today in the real world. But then you have the rare shining example that will sacrifice for the greater good, or even for that one individual, putting that person above themselves, which is, for me, part of what heroism is. It's not just doing what's best for the overall good, because sometimes that can lead to some really unfair situations. Conall, you wanted to interrupt me?
I was going to wait. I was letting you get to your skill.
I could go on all day.
I know. My question is actually goes with RPGs, because I've seen it go this way. What's more important to save? The one person do you save one person to sacrifice 100 people, or do you sacrifice 100 people to save one person?
Depends on the situation. Depends on who you are.
There is only one right answer.
You're going to go with save the 100 people?
No.
Okay, that's surprising. Because no one's life is more important than the next. The moment you think that person's life, the moment you think it is, it's when you get in trouble. And in campaigns, I've seen this from time to time. Well, if we don't save this town, ... where it is more important. Life is sacred. D&D, Pathfinder, whatever game should treat life as being sacred, where alignments shouldn't matter. But the way people play the game, me included, at least in the past, that hasn't always been an issue. Yes, I can make the argument, if I'm a paladin of St. Cuthbert, I'm a murdering bastard because his justice means, even if you put down your sword, justice still needs to happen. Doesn't matter if you dropped your sword. But apparently with your guys' argument, no, that's not the point. But he's a lawful good deity. That's to be honest, that's a matter of opinion. I don't think that a true lawful good being of near omnipotence would leave it so.
D&D gods are not omnipotent. They don't know what's going to happen next. That's how
they're not real gods. Then they're not real gods. They're upstarts.
Well,
Brian, welcome to the show, Crafting Gamer, Flady.
Man,
all you guys, welcome to the show. I'm trying to keep up. I'm gonna have to make one of you guys a moderator or something, so you can hit these comments for me. A paladin's mythos will determine whether he is a good paladin or a bad anti-paladin. Sure. Brian, like I said, welcome to the show. I'm surprised to hear you say you love alignments, but It's also a tool to simplify the game. Especially if you've never played before, it can give you, a really, not, depending on the alignment system you're using, a nice sort of checklist and way to play the character. Especially someone who doesn't even understand the word cleric all that well, or priest, you can throw that one in there, or even paladin. If they don't know what a paladin is or a priest is, and you show them, well, here's your god, well, and here's the alignment or the belief system, summed up, instead of handing them a big ass thick book on their alignment, depending on your religious views and whatnot. Having a real, something you throw on an index card and go, this is what you would do normally in these situations, or wouldn't do, or have that wiggle room if you're playing like chaotic neutral or something like that.
Sorry, I'm reading up on the AD&D Paladins because somebody brought it up in chat. I think it was Shauner that brought it up in chat. Let's see here.
The problem
It's been
with
a while since I've read my
alignment
AD&D book.
relativism. Shut the hell up with point of view nonsense. You know what good and evil are. Yeah, absolutely, I do. I was trying to throw in the neutrals in there with that statement, I believe. Brian says alignments ring in folks who don't fall into the same old common tropes. Okay. Hey, Grandma, how you doing? Shauner says, doesn't the AD&D 1E rules say that what a paladin is? I'm sure it has a good page or 2 or 3 describing all about that class.
Actually,
it's really only about a half a page, unless you go into the Unearthed Arcana, in which case it's got a couple more pages. But I mean, you could write an entire book.
Specifically, it starts on page 22 and goes to page 23, and it's only 5 bullet points of information there. Mostly about not keeping wealth, tithing, not associating with evil in any of its forms, and taking service or form an alliance with lawful good characters whenever possible.
Hey, Dungeon Minister, welcome to the show. By the way, Dungeon Minister, my son saw that comment, and he's probably going to respond, but that really made his day when someone notices the little things that he does. It may not seem like he does as much as his old man does, but he's got a busy schedule with high school, JROTC, fencing class, chess club, and just trying to be a teenager. But we really appreciated that comment yesterday. God will know his people. Okay. We're Brian, but the paladin is selfish in that they follow their dogma over all others for the power of their deity, for the power of their deity gives them.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's an argument can be made for that.
It's a matter of opinion, the DM's opinion. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or why have a DM at all, right? Shauner says,
yeah, that'd be called having an AI DM.
Guns. That is how they try to save the most lives. Absolutely. Not even going to get into, recent current events, but a truer statement has not been said all week, my friend. I am jumping out of my skin in here. Okay, Bo, we'll try and rein it in for you. Before the internet, people put actors' faces on the alignment chart to show players what each one meant. Okay, what was Christopher Walken?
That it's funny. That one's funny. Going with the alignment situation. I did theater back in high school. I have dark hair, dark eyes, dark features, right? And whenever there was a play came up, guess who was cast as the hero? The blonde hair, blue-eyed guy, where the dark featured guy gets cast as the bad guy.
That probably comes a lot, believe it or not, from the old black and white cowboy tropes, when it made it easier for the masses to identify with the hero and with the villain. I've known, people of all, makes and models, with all the different, let's just call them alignments to make it easy. And what you look like on the outside does not dictate what you look like on the inside, although there is a strong argument against that lately. the prettier the girl is or the prettier the guy is, the more likely they are to have had everything just handed to them on a silver platter, and they then kind of expect it. And what did Bo say?
But Bo says Christopher Walken is the opposite of Christopher Reeve. Wow.
No, Christopher Reeve's technically not is laying, not even rolling anymore.
I love that, man. That's
Wow.
great.
Wow. Just wow.
You said you had a question.
So wait, so you're saying he's chaotic evil? Is that what you're saying there, Bo? Because I've seen Christopher Walken play kind of goodish guys. I'd probably put them more chaotic neutral good. But
he played Christopher Reeve's. Oh, you said Walken.
No.
Yeah.
So the joke there is Christopher Walken is walking and Christopher Reeve is not.
Let me get my will.
That was the joke. Yeah, that was the joke.
I didn't really want to go there because
he had one of these.
I knew where he went.
He had one of these. Only full size. Anyway, somebody has questions that they need to ask because this is one of those topics that can go gooey really fast.
Oh, okay. Thanks, I was just going by with what I know. I'm not a big history guy, but yeah, you know what? Let's we're already 22 minutes into this cluster.
Before we get started, cheers to everybody in chat and cheers to you guys.
I'd like to make this a drinking game, but I guess I'm gonna have to go with when we say good or evil. Take a drink.
Oh God, my liver.
I came prepared.
Yeah, I came prepared. Yeah, I got 2 bottles of water and the restroom's right over there on the other side of the studio. Girls like bad boys. Oh, Shauner, don't even get me started on that. They absolutely.
Let's roll this in. Let me be the one who be responsible. Oh God, don't let me be the responsible one tonight.
Well, first off, thank you for being so active, chat.
No
yeah,
shit.
Absolutely. We've got quite a few eyes on us right now. Christopher Walken is an accessory to murder. I kind of think you may be right on that one. I guess you're alluding to Natalie Wood's unfortunate demise. You don't know about that? Okay,
Christopher Reeve, his acting career happened while I was in my diapers.
No, Walken. Christopher
Walken. Once again, same concept. Most of his acting career happened when I was in diapers.
Hey, Janet, welcome to the show. Dungeon Minister says, I'm not seeing over half the comments.
There's comments on my channel and there's comments on your channel. If you're seeing the little link symbol by one of the names, it means it's from my channel.
Okay.
Yep.
So
new technology with StreamYards, we're actually able to have it on multiple channels now.
I got questions about that, but those questions can wait till later. But let's get this ball going. We're going to be talking alignments, which is a firecracker of a top to begin with. And Shadow over there has some questions. I'm going to take these reins that has gone everywhere, but the direction that we need to set the horses in the right direction and hand them off to the host with the most, the guy who has class, wisdom, and grace. No one here. I mean, Shadow. So here we go.
I got a little bit of each, but the tie helps. Chokes me every time I try to get.
I'm the dungeon master. I don't have any class. That's what my players have.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, I still can't get it straight because there we go.
I need to get a noose. I need to get a noose and wear it as a tie.
So the first question, it's pretty basic. It's right there in the title. Why do you guys think there's so much hatred or disdain for most alignment rules in fantasy games?
I'll jump on the grenade.
Okay.
Would you?
Yeah, I would jump on the grenade. This grenade particularly. I think it's a DM's fault. I think DMs are not coming down to explaining to the character players how these alignments are supposed to be played. where players are getting hamstringed because you have to be this, you have to be that. Very few people are true neutral. I'll give you true neutral is probably not true neutral. Neutral good's common. No one's truly, I mean, people are evil, but people don't understand evil because people naturally aren't evil. They have to be driven that way by society or by nature. But when you're sitting down at a table playing a make-believe game with make-believe people, and you're trying to become that character, to immerse, I know I'm using big words here, immerse yourself into that character, you're not truly understanding that person's mindset. So the DM says, well, this is lawful good. And he gives a 5-minute speech on lawful good, neutral good, and hold down there. Very few DMs will let their players play evil because they don't want to run evil campaigns. They want to run good campaigns, which there's nothing wrong with that. But the DM, I find, is not taking the time that he needs to actually sit down and explain to the players what these alignments need. They throw them the books. They say, read this. Then if they step their little toe off the line, they get harassed. So I think the hatred from maybe not the DM harass them, but other players will harass them. I think the problem that people are having with alignments is no one truly understands how they're meant to play anymore because DMs assume that their players have done the research when most of these people, especially in my profession, being a paid DM, don't know their head from a hole in the ground when it comes to such a subject unless I sit down and explain what each one of them means. Yes, there's things on the internet you can read. Yes, there's books you read. But unless you have a conversation with your players, and depends on the type of game you have, they're not going to get the full picture. They're going to get a corner of the full picture, and shit's just going to go sideways.
I think you may have a point. However, it is the bare minimum for the players is to read the player's section or player's book before they come to the table. If they say they did and didn't, then they have no one else to blame but themselves.
I can hand you Shakespeare. I can hand you Shakespeare and tell you to read Hamlet. Are you going to understand Hamlet unless somebody sits down and helps you work through Hamlet?
Well, it depends on what language is written and what kind of education you have. If you've got a high school graduate, under your belt and someone hands you Hamlet and you agree to read it, then you've agreed to read it. If you don't understand it, that's not the DM's fault. That's your fault as the player for not saying, hey, I don't understand this. Can you explain it to me, Lucy? Otherwise, the DM, he's got half a dozen other players and on a good day, and he can't, have a session A through zero, going over every single aspect before they actually play. Most good GMs are, thinking that, hey, my players want to play. They've read the book. Let's go.
That's a poor assumption because people are idiots.
Janet, that's funny. That's probably a topic for an entire episode.
I was not involved. I was not there.
Yeah, Shauna, I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. You know exactly how I feel about that, and
that's neither.
Sad times we live in.
That topic.
Sad times we're living in, but also very good times if you are prepared for these times. Yeah, I despise everything about people who do that. If you can't go through the player's handbook of whatever game you're playing and go, that's what I want to play exactly like that, then what the hell? Find a game that has the character type that you just cannot wait to play. If you cannot wait to just throw a wrench into the book, and hope it doesn't crash and burn, or if you're hoping to crash and burn a game, there's a special place for you, and it's definitely not on the internet.
If you're wanting to crash somebody's game, there's the door. No one needs you. No one wants you. Go back.
Yeah, that door leads to my garage and a group of guys with a blanket and a bunch of baseball bats. you go in and try to screw up anybody's life or a good time, that's exactly what you deserve. Life's too short, and if the only pleasure you derive in life is from causing misery, suffering, you're on the wrong planet.
So I'm gonna go ahead and jump in on the first question. So, contrary to Connell's belief that it's the game master's fault, I think it's more on the player, because in most game settings, the alignments or morality or whatever system of guidelines for behavior might be, they're fairly well spelled out in most game settings. Like, I'm more of a fan of the White Wolf morality genre methods of either humanity or virtue and vice. Like, I'm more of a fan of those than I am of the D&D like pure 9 alignments. But that's, again, because I think that's more true to reality of what people are, like the actual morality that people have. But my biggest problem with D&D alignments would have to be that most players either misinterpret the alignment or don't care enough to read what the alignments actually mean and just go, well, this is just the way I'm going to play my character. Oh, that's what my character would do. I'm playing my alignment. Are you really playing your alignment if you don't know what your alignment means? I've had people play chaotic neutral characters just so they can do whatever batshit insane things they want to do, which that's not what chaotic neutral means. Like, not in the least. Yeah, you're a little chaotic, you're a little unpredictable, but that doesn't mean you're insane. You have no real sense of morality, or you try to play the middle game a little too much of between good and evil. But like, I don't know, just the players who are playing specific alignments because they want to get away with shit, that is where I think the problem is. And that is why I typically hate the D&D alignment systems, because players, and it's not just at my table, I've been at other tables, have completely misconstrued and twisted the alignment system so they can get a mechanical advantage on things. It's also why I don't really allow the protection from evil, protection from chaos, protection from whatever spells in my game anymore, because they're over abused, in my opinion. Like, oh, the person's invisible, but I've got detect evil. I know that there's evil in this room. Really? We're going to go that way? Where detect evil is now suddenly see invisibility? We're going to go that way? Okay, fine. I can play this game too, and you're not going to like me for it.
I'm going to allow them. Really quick, let me hop on real quick. I would allow them. Oh yeah, you could tell that there's evil in this room, but you don't know where it's at.
Well, no, that's the thing is, after 3 rounds, in at least 3.5, in 3 rounds, you can pinpoint within 5 feet the square of which the evil being is in, which I absolutely hate. I hate that concept.
That's like, bullshit. No, I get that too.
Yeah, that is it's utter bullshit. That is taking a game mechanic to the nth degree. Like, that is kind of going against, to me, the spirit of it. Like, oh yes, you can detect evil. That's cool. You detect evil in a room. Yes, you are surrounded by evil. You know that there are evil beings in here, but if they are invisible, no, I'm not going to just give it to you because you always have detect evil on. I'm sorry, I'm just not.
Unless you have a bag of flour, the answer is no.
When it comes to the detecting issue, I think I'd have to look at the rules and see what they say specifically, but I can see how it could be used, to the player's advantage, but there would have to be a reason why, inside the game, not outside the game, no metagaming, why they're going that route. But my answer for the first question is kind of simple. When I was writing these up, I was thinking a certain way. But I think, to be honest, it is all about honesty. If the players are honest with themselves and the DM, and they say, look, I don't want to play a good guy. Okay, I want to play a selfish bastard. I just want to, go for the power and the money and the magic items, or the riches or the prestige or whatever. I don't want to be, a great guy. I don't want to be a hero. Fine. There might be a place for you in the game, but if everybody else is on board with being the good guy, don't be surprised if you don't, get, asked to leave the game, or, the players aren't, all that willing to help you out in times of emergency because you've been being a schmuck. If you're honest with everybody at the game table during that session 0, or, maybe you've had a bad day or something, like, guys, I'm just not feeling it today, maybe we can, work it out somehow, but not at the table because your DM's not your bartender, despite what it might say on his YouTube handle. He's there to have just as much fun as you are, or she, what have you. I wanted to read this comment by RPG Grandma. Again, welcome to the show. I think some people don't like the constraints they imagine alignments to be, or understand that they started out as a way of doing mass combat and are based off literature of forces of order versus forces of disorder. I think the first part especially is true. So many younger players just really don't want to be told what to do at the table. They think it's all about them and that they are the star of the show, and that is absolutely incorrect. They'll get their chance if they earn it, but they have to earn it. That's why I like the older XP systems, where you get what you earn and you don't just get, the same as everybody else, because that reeks of something, else entirely. So be honest with everybody, and your players, your DMs, yourself. What do you want to play? How do you want to play? If you want to be the paladin, cool. Everybody's going to understand, that you have some restrictions and you have some things that you're going to have to, do certain ways, just as the priest and the ranger, even the assassin and the thief, have things built within their character profession that requires them to do certain things that may or may not be in line with the overall goals of the players at the table. And if you guys just, let each other know what you really want out of the game, then maybe you can actually find an alignment that will suit how you want to play the character and how you want the player character to act and behave. And maybe, it could be used as a tool it was meant to be. That is a guideline for how your character would act in that world, not how you would act in that world. You're playing a part of somebody else. You're not yourself, unless that is the game. If you're playing one of those games like Villains and Vigilantes, where you roll up yourself, cool. But if you're playing a character that's not you, that's something different than you, it helps you get into the part. So auras are not visible. They are with magical detection devices, or by people, highly psychic or mystical that can see them. Otherwise, probably not. Otherwise, we'd all walk around with one of those icons, like in, what the heck was that game? Oh God, I can't remember. Sims. Yeah. Letting people know that, hey, I'm chaotic evil. Don't mess with me. Something like that. I'm not sure what you mean by the good versus evil detection thing. If you don't like alignments, don't play in D&D. Pretty simple, right? We're going to get on to the other games in just a moment there, Max. Why are there alignment rules if the players are just going to do hobo combat on map grid? Sorry, my eyes aren't that great today. That's why I think a lot of games have decided to not use them, or they don't want to go that route when they're copying the original role-playing games that most of them, had alignments, or at least, D&D being the first one that I'm actually aware of had it. It was there for a reason. let the chaotic evil player just play the monsters.
I've thought about
that's
it.
the DM's job. That's the DM's job, unless they are one and the same. And yes, there are chaotic evil dungeon masters out there.
Yeah,
BG,
I mean, I've thought about
what-
it. Just letting the chaotic evil player play the monsters for me. I've seriously given it thought sometimes.
Some way
yeah,
that would make my life easier.
Grandma, if players don't want people to know their alignments, then that's fine, but if you say you're a paladin, it comes part and parcel with, being able to predict what that character is going to do in most situations. If you show up, wielding, a short sword and a hood and a cloak, and you're not wearing anything metal as in the way of armor, I'm going to guess you're a thief or an assassin. So, a clever player can pretty much figure out, within, two spaces of your alignment what you are. So, I mean, unless you're really clever about hiding your alignment.
Well, I've had DMs basically outrightly say to other players, you can detect other people's alignments. You just can't check other players' alignments. That is a no-go. And
That's what I was talking about, John. I'm sorry.
Oh, how do you know that invisible character's around you? So this is, and I addressed this in your chat. I have players who play paladins specifically so that they use the at will power of detect evil constantly. They never shut it off. And that's how they describe it. It's like, oh, I just walk around with detect evil up all the time. I'm like, why? Even in a city of like a metropolis or something, you're just gonna walk around with detect evil up? What would you do if you found people who were evil?
If you're a paladin and you literally had that ability, because guys got to remember, we don't have those kinds of abilities in the real world. Some people say they do, but if you had it, trust me, if I had detect evil, I would have it up 24/7. Period. But I mean,
what would you do about it? If you see half the population of a metropolis is evil, what would you do about it? What would there be to do? What's the point?
Watch my step very freaking carefully, a lot more carefully than one does normally. But that's part of the point is, it's not the real world. It's not normal. And we sometimes lose sight of, just how fantastic some of the abilities our characters have compared to the real world. If you knew, for example, every time someone lied to you and you knew it, it wouldn't be that eventually you'd wish you could turn it off. You wouldn't want to see into the ugliness that everybody has deep down inside them. Whether it's a lot or a little, we all got a little bit at least. I think we can agree on that. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to know everybody's deepest, darkest secret. Just like, those tropes with those movies or TV shows with people who have psychic abilities and can't turn off other people's thoughts. It would drive you freaking insane. Yes, Shauna, respect and gold stars are earned. Unfortunately, some people don't think so and think you get them just for showing up. We also told the Pat to wait outside and keep watch while we did the paladin.
Yeah, the paladin.
What we had to do. Sure. But then when he walks in and sees a bunch of people, murdered, he's going to have some questions.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but if I had friends that did stuff like that, eventually I'd be wondering when my turn was, because what's keeping them from doing that? Because I'm a paladin and they're only slightly evil, they're not going to pull that shit on me. Flady, I agree with Shadow here. I think it ties in with Max's opinion on restrictions of themes that the modern day younger player hasn't been prepared to appreciate. That limitation drive creative processing. Thank you. When you get to a certain point, I know even I, as a younger gamer, the more I read and played, the more I wanted to delve into the older stuff, the older books of the hobby, to learn as much as I could. And that's how I learned a lot of the things that I've learned over the years, is going back and looking at the past, at least when it comes to this hobby. Obviously, ancient history, not so much. But at some point, these younger players are going to get, up to here with, well, all I'm getting is this kind of information. I wonder what it was like in the old days. I wonder, are there some secrets or some tricks, especially with the DMs, and they will go back and maybe they'll be able to pull some wisdom out of the older books. I'm, keeping my fingers crossed, but not going to wait on a hot stove.
I mean,
yeah, right, Grandma. A lot of people do try to play themselves, and this is a habit we need to break. Whether we got to get a rolled up newspaper or not, don't know yet. But there are games for that. If you want to play yourself, find one of those games. But constantly shoving yourself into your character doesn't really get you anywhere. You're never going to see the full benefit of role playing, which is playing somebody else. Okay, Max, again, you can still set up, expect, hell,
well, you
demand.
can still set up demand a heroic campaign.
I always love the adage. It came out of the Riddick movie. Sometimes to fight evil, you need a different type of evil. Now, two wrongs does not make a right. But at the same time, evil knows evil.
I don't know about that one. I don't think that. I think that's a way to justify your actions or justify hiring somebody willing to do what you're not willing to do yourself. But eventually, you're just replacing one evil for another. You're really not. You're really not. Improving the overall situation.
As I said, two wrongs don't make a right. But if the guy is so freaking evil that you can't get your head around him, sometimes you need to employ somebody who is not want to say sympathetic, but understands where the asshat comes from. For alignments, it's so fucking excuse my language. It is tricky. Jade has told a story on multiple different occasions. I won't have him do it again, where a group of people were ordered to go in and slaughter a town of undead, not knowing that the undead weren't the bad guys in the story. They were the good people. Supposedly, they were the heroes of the story.
That just sounds like someone trying to throw a wrench into the standard tropes. If you're undead, unless it's something
the concept was this: the game master was having trouble with his players constantly just murdering anything before giving anyone a moment's peace to try to discuss things and actually role play. The DM was trying to give information to the players, through role play methods, through their villains and whatnot, and the party would just kill things. They didn't care about talking. They didn't care about anything else other than murdering the things and taking their stuff. Murder hobos. So the way the game master set up the rest of the campaign, the direction it was going, was he kept dropping clues and hints, about this group of evildoers out in the world that kept slaughtering towns and slaughtering people left, right, and center. They didn't realize it was themselves, first off, and then when they finally came across a town that had undead in it, the undead, what they didn't realize was the undead were put to work working fields because the population had been absolutely destroyed. In a town of 100 people, there were 10 people alive, and the rest were undead working the fields because, one, they don't tire, and two, something had to be done for the people who were still alive and survived the disease. And the kingdom that basically made out proclamations anyone who dies by the disease can be resurrected as an undead to work the fields because our people desperately need food, and the people who are still alive are too sick to actually go do things to keep the kingdom running. So that's the king made the proclamation. Okay, let's raise dead, keep our kingdom moving. Well, the party unknowingly just kept wiping out town after town after town. They didn't even ask the citizens of the town they were going to, why is there a bunch of undead here? They just made the assumption, oh, the people raised the undead, we're going to wipe out the entire town. They burned, pillaged, and destroyed an entire country just because the country had undead in it. And everyone there was a necromancer, apparently, to the party. So finally, when they get to the king's like, well, congratulations, I guess, are in order because you've won. You've destroyed my entire kingdom. You have no idea what sacrifices I had to make to keep my kingdom running. But you didn't care. You didn't stop the question. Well, I'm here. I lay my head at your feet. Congratulations, you have won. So that was the game master trying to prove a point of, hey, maybe you guys should, not be murder hobos. But they just kept doing it. And every time he set them up to succeed, they chose violence. They chose to fail.
Did they ever change?
No.
From that moment?
Well, okay. Not for that game. That game ended with them killing the king and taking over a dead kingdom. So the players actually asked the game master, wait, are we the bad guys? Like that right there was the moment they said it. Oh man, we have not been playing our alignments. Oh, we weren't playing with alignments at all. Yeah, so I think the players did change eventually. I don't know beyond that. I just, I know what I have read from that story, from that game master who was frustrated with his players who weren't acting out their hobby, their alignments. They weren't actually using alignments at all. They were just like, oh, that's an evil, that's undead. I'm go murder it. I'm going to murder the person who made it. Well, is the person here in town? Well, there's only 10 people here in town. Murder them all. Let's be done with this place. Like, come on. And that in that game, apparently alignments just didn't matter to the players. So that's why I say I think alignment, it goes both ways with dungeon masters and players. They both have to agree that alignments matter. And if alignments don't matter, okay, don't play with them, sure. But also don't play D&D.
Yeah, that's going to segue into a couple of questions later on down the road. I want to get to number 2 before we hit the first hour mark.
Sorry. I'm trying to behave.
This is a lively topic.
You guys are being great. Chat's being great. I could barely keep up with them. Do you guys think that this trend is more of a cultural or sociological issue? Because I should have added to this question. Because for decades, I did not experience this as a problem whatsoever. Up until the early 2000s or so, I can't remember ever having a question of why alignments, just what alignment do you guys want to play? Not why are we, saddled up with these awful, the constraining alignments. It was just like, what alignments you guys want to play now? Or something to that effect. Do you think that it is possibly a cultural or a sociological issue at play?
I'll let you take a swing at this one, Jade, first.
Okay. Is it let's see here. Is it cultural, sociological? It could be. I'm not really into the social sciences as heavily as my wife is. She'd probably have a better answer for this.
You can wait. You can
but I would say
go get her.
We can wait.
No, I'm not going to pester her. She's busy with something else. She's working on a project for someone.
That's a safe answer.
I would say that I think it comes down to misreading or misinterpreting rules as they are written in black and white text. Which, it could be a cultural thing, that it could be laziness, which can be cultural. It could also be, I guess, a little sociological. I mean, honestly, I think it could be just laziness. Like, I don't have time to read the rules of alignment, so I'm just going to skip it and move on. Like, I just want to make a character. And I think a lot of, and correct me if I'm wrong, I might be misspeaking here, but I think a lot of younger people who have just got into the hobby and, just wanting to get into what everyone's talking about and be part of the thing. They're not so worried about reading all of the rules immediately. They're more about like, how do I play? Where do I play? Who can I play with? Like they want to jump in like fully into it, but they don't want to do all of the heavy lifting to understand it. And I'm not saying that's, I'm not saying every, younger person or every new person to the hobby is that way. I'm saying that that has been my experience of seeing new players come in who don't want to necessarily read all of the content, because some of these books are 300, 400 pages, of material. Some, some setting books or some rule books, get you all that you need to know within just the first 50 pages. But again, you have to put in the time to read. You have to put in the time to learn. Learning, you can learn to do anything. You really can. You just have to put in the time and effort it takes to do so. And I find that, some people, when they, like I said, when they first jump in, they don't spend the time to learn.
Conall?
I don't blame. I shouldn't put it that way. My generation, aka your generation, and going forward, have
the millennials. I know it's such a bad word. The millennials.
I am not a millennial. I'm a cranky.
You are too a millennial.
I'm a geriatric millennial. There's a before that. We have been raised on movies and TV shows.
Some.
And not so much books anymore, but movies and TV, where the hero goes out and slays the bad guy. It be a fantasy movie, a cartoon, whatever. Then you bring in video games. Video games like Halo, Grand Theft Auto. Hey, I still don't know who the real hero in that story is. This is me being antic on that part, but we are video games like Grand Theft Auto and other games like that, where it's just senseless killing for no other reason than you can get away with it. Now they want to sit down and play a hobby that was rooted back before most of us were in diapers, and we're not, some of us don't want to take the time and read the libraryness of the hobby, because there's some really thick books out there and multiple thick about how the game should be played. But we don't want to do this. We want it to be like a video game. We want to sit down, grab our dice, aka the controller, get our drink, and sit down and play our character as if it's a video game. To hell with the consequences, not realizing how rich and how rich the background of this campaign of this game is, because we're too impatient. And I think it's a society issue. We are a very impatient generation, and it's only getting worse. And sitting down for the concept of sitting down and watching a 3-hour movie, we want our shows to be 30 seconds or less. We don't want to be bothered. We don't want to be bothered with having to do something. We want to do what we need to do and move on to the next thing, then move on to the next thing, then move on to the next thing. So if you want a new player to sit down and read a tome that it breaks down every little thing that the game components of the game, such as alignment, you are asking them to do more than what they do in their day-to-day life, more than what they're going to do for school, for work. For some of us, even their marriage or relationships with friends or with lovers. This is more work than they want to put into anything. So they're going, I'm going to roll up a character. I'm going to do neutral good. Neutral good's easy to play, not knowing what neutral good is. I'm going to be chaotic good, because some of the best heroes in movies are chaotic good, right? Like Mel Gibson's characters for the most part. It being Lethal Weapon or Payback. Robin Hood, right. It's not that they're trying to be greedy bastards. They're just going with what's popular in media, the feeling of what popular in the theater. Very few people won't be lawful good. This guy right here, for the most part, I've known him to play lawful good characters. He's great at it. I suck at it. That's not my bag. No way is that my bag. If I play a chaotic neutral character, it's about money. Yeah, I'll work with the group to better my aims. It's not that I'm evil, and it's not that I'm good. I just want to get paid at the end of the day.
Well, that is kind of evil, though, because you're doing it for monetary reasons. You're not doing it for out of the kindness of your heart. You're doing it to get paid. And if that is your bottom line, no, let me finish. If that is your bottom line, if your bottom line is I'll work for you, but you have to pay me, like, okay, there is some argument there to be made that doing a job and getting paid for it is not evil. That is not. But going so far as, no, I'm not going to help you unless you pay me, and the person's getting curb stomped. Like, if the person's getting curb stomped and they say, yeah, help me, it's like, nope, not till you pay me. Like, then yes, I would consider that evil.
I'll give you that's evil.
Okay.
But I'll give you that. But the saying there is no such thing as a free lunch, it does transfer over to gaming. We don't play Gopher in video games or in D&D or whatever games unless there's some kind of payout.
I'm sorry.
Well, okay. The reason we play video games is for the and this gets into video game and actually board game and, well, game theory of, like, actual development of it. The reason why we play games is to feel satisfaction, to feel elation at getting the reward, whatever the reward might be. And this kind of touches on the topic from last week. The reason why we continue to go back and play games is because we get something out of it. And if you're not getting something out of the game, why are you showing up, or why are you playing it? You are getting something. I mean, unless you're really not, then you end up leaving that table, I would assume. I've known people who don't leave the table and just want to sit there through the misery of it. At that point, I'm just like, why are you even there? Like, move on. Find a table that fits you better.
Because some players, including myself, will sit at a table and is just happy to be around other people that I don't have to boss around, that are not bossing me around, for companionship.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, my answer, first, thank you very much, Max. That was nice of you to say. Put that back up just so you know what I was talking about. And this book, Original Player's Handbook, excluding the appendices, which are not necessary to read, you're looking at about 100 pages. And we're not talking, tiny print. The average page is more graphs and pictures than wordage. 100 pages. If you can't, get your players to read something like this, I realize the newer players' handbooks are much thicker, and maybe that's the problem. Scale it down. Start with the older games. Once they've shown the ability and the eagerness to actually read the information in the book. See, with my generation, that's all we had. Okay, we loved these books. These books actually meant something to us. They were important. We would take a bullet for these books. Okay, we would work harder than we'd ever worked before to earn up the money, to save up the money so that we could buy this book. There was not the ease of just turning on a TV or a video game or anything like that. I started playing this particular version of Dungeons and Dragons before there were home consoles that everybody could afford. If we played a video game, it was a quarter at a time. And for the most part, if we were saving up for one of these books, we avoided the liquor stores because that's where the video games were. We were not going in there to play video games. We were saving up our money, collecting bottles, mowing lawns, walking dogs, whatever, so we could get one of these books and then we could read it, and we would enjoy actually reading. So when I asked whether it's, cultural or sociological, not only I do believe it's a bit of both, but it's, as Conall touched on, a huge amount of laziness and to be honest, being spoiled rotten to the point they could not even imagine. And you've all heard the old stories of, how so-and-so had to walk to school in the snow, uphill both ways, and all that crap. My generation didn't have it that hard, but we still actually rode our bikes to school. We didn't get dropped off by mommy or daddy or the nanny and then picked up after school and ushered right home and shoved in front of a TV set to play video games or whatever. We actually,
I feel targeted
would
by that statement.
we would actually enjoy books because books were better than anything that was on TV. And you know what? They still are.
Unless it's Twilight, then TV is still better than the book.
Good point. So it's a mixture of things, at least in my humble opinion. Now, without completely eliminating alignments, how would you improve the alignment system? Or would you go to a specific system and go, this one's better, like Palladium? Or would you write up a new one or write up some notes to help your players to be able to understand and play with an alignment system?
You want to table this one first, Conall?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll jump on this live line. I am playing D&D 3.5 Pathfinder, not 5th edition, because 5th edition is its very own creature when it comes to alignments, and I really don't want to get into because they annoy the hell out of me, though, too, but for different reasons. There's only 3 alignments. There's no half measures. Only 3. Good. Well, actually, really just 2. Good and bad. Now, I think there's a Star Wars game. Trans age, Jesus. Bruce, kiss my ass. Anyways,
Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Only 2 alignments, good and bad. But here's the thing. I think it's a Star Wars game where your actions give you bad points or sin points or whatever you want to call it, and good points. You do something that is because they're evil, you get 8 points. You do something good, you get a point. So it's an overflowing thing on which alignment you really are. Because nobody is truly good, nor is everybody truly evil. Your actions determine whether you're good or bad. So you got a wizard that doesn't cast necromancy. 10 to 1, he'd be a good guy. But you got a wizard who does cast necromancy every so often. That doesn't make him incredibly evil. He's just a really bad doctor. So I think it should be...
Arrived too late?
What? Arrived late. So I think it would be a point system, a mana pool, a moral pool, one would say, on how I would treat it. You do something good, you get a point in the right direction. You do something bad, you get a point in the opposite direction. If you get too many points in one direction, you are saintly or you're devilish. And that's how it should be treated. Not to hamstring players into one alignment that they sometimes don't quite understand. That's how I change it.
How about you, Jade?
Man, how do I change? So I've thought about changing alignment rules like multiple times for some of my games. And the one I keep going back to is kind of like a slider scale. And it's a scale of like 0 to 9 or 1 to 9. And it's 3 bars per section: good, evil, good, neutral, evil, and chaos versus law. It's 3 bars each. And like you would set on the slider scale, like what rating you think you are, whatever it might be for the game. And then as you do things, like I have control over the sliders bar after game 1 starts, after session 1 starts. You do an evil act, I start tipping the slider towards evil. You do acts that are more in tune with your patron's laws or your patron's tenets, I start tipping it back the other direction. For law chaos. I find that system gets left behind very quickly. Like I abandoned that very quickly early on. For the most part, man, how to make it better? I would say use a different system. Honestly, just use an entirely different game system than D&D's alignment. I've heard a lot about Palladium alignment system being truly amazing, and I would love to give that a try. I really would. But I think the morality or humanity system out of White Wolf games is where I like to play the most. And the reason for that is, the morality isn't necessarily going to go up or down depending on how severe of a thing you do against your creed, your ethos, your whatever the case might be. And that's where everyone has, especially I think it's World of Darkness, you have a vice and a virtue. The more you feed your vice, the more you lose in your morality, your humanity. The more you feed into your virtue, the more, your humanity or morality is boosted. And there are varying degrees at both ends of the spectrum there. Like you could kind of feed your vice while still feeding your virtue. You don't really move anywhere with it. So, the more virtuous things you do, the better of a mortal being you are. Except for, was it when you're a vampire, it's called humanity. Or, typically the monsters have humanity. And the higher your humanity rating is the more compassionate you are for mortals. Whereas the less humanity you have is the more callous you are towards others' suffering. And I like the WAD system in that way because it feels more natural. I'm not constricted to, I must always be lawful good. And, I can never condone such acts of villainy. Well, sometimes it's like, what? That guy has burnt down 15 orphanages. I'm gonna step outside. I'm gonna plug my ears and I'm gonna go for a walk and say, a couple prayers to my God for guidance. Don't do anything too irrational while I'm gone. I think like it really depends on the players being able to actually role play their humanity, their morality, in a morality based game like White Wolf has. I think it's not White Wolf. I think it's somebody else who owns the rights to it. But White Wolf is what the publisher everybody knows. I think it's I can't even remember the publisher now. Anyway, so yeah, that's my answer. I prefer the morality system out of WAD personally.
Okay. To be honest, Palladium's version of alignment isn't really anything more than a list of guidelines, the do's and don'ts, what someone like this, for example, a scrupulous or a diabolical, those are the types of names they have, what they would or wouldn't do. They're free to do otherwise. AD&D had a harsh penalty of losing 1 or 2 levels if you veered away from your alignment and became another alignment. You might be able to get away with an act here or there, but if you consistently, basically changed, if you did some things contrary to your alignment enough, you would, be forced into a switching of alignments and then get penalized 1 or 2 levels. Having that happen once or twice to a character is a pretty harsh punishment, but it does the trick. To be honest, I don't know that I would do anything differently. I don't know that I would create a new alignment system. I might use Palladiums in D&D and vice versa or something like that. I play a lot of games, and I play a lot of games with and without alignments. So I don't know that I would change anything other than play more games and, whatever system they're using, learn it and try to understand where the writers were coming from. So I don't actually have, a replacement alignment system. I do like them. I like them for a lot of reasons. But like I said, I play games without them, and I don't insist that Traveler has an alignment system. So I really don't have an answer. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this discussion today, is because I see it as not a problem with the game, but a problem with the players and a problem with modern society having, people who are just all too eager to do anything but the actual homework. If you were going to pick up any other hobby, you would do the homework. And this hobby is too easy to not do the homework. If you were going to, I can't even think of a hobby because mine are rather limited, and I don't want to talk about, that hobby right now. I really think it's just that the players are, have been the newer players have been told that, they can get into this hobby. You don't even need the book. You don't need to do anything other than just sit down and, arrive, show up regularly, and not even that. So I'm going to try to catch up with a couple of the chats here.
I think I want to have another shot of whiskey because, yeah.
I mean, hell, I've even grabbed a beer. This is a thick topic.
I think it counts. I mean, outside of this hobby, the people who've known me for years, Jay being one of them, knows that I'm a bastard. But at my worst moments, if I hear a child in pain or a woman in pain, I will go bend my back. I will bend my back. I'll break my
Bend
back
over backwards.
over to make
Bend over
sure
backwards.
bend over backwards to make sure they're in the right place. Maybe I'm too old school. In my opinion, no women, no children, no animals. Everything else is fair game. And if somebody is hurting one of those three things, my caveman brain kicks in.
Welcome to the show, Justin.
And my caveman brain kicks in, and I go fix the problem. Now, do I play? So that's me as a person. Now, my characters, they're assholes, but so am I. Will they bend over backwards to make sure the heroes win at the end of the day? Yes, because it's the right thing to do. But how do you play that? No, it's the honorable thing to do.
If the heroes don't win at the end of the game, that means they failed through either bad luck or really bad decisions.
A dragon comes, and let's do the atypical one. A dragon comes, steals the princess, takes her back to his tower. He just happens to be Bowser. And you and your party go saves princess and brings her back to her peach of a kingdom. And dragon is slayed. Is not winning? Is that not coming out ahead? The heroes won for the day. But
if the heroes don't win through either sheer bad luck or through really, really poor decisions, I'm not going to force a win if my players have made really poor decisions. If my players do something incredibly dumb and get themselves killed, well, that's the end of their run.
See, there's the misunderstanding. I'm not saying the DM does this. The DM is not the one who puts a check mark in the box. It is up to the players to be able to put that check mark in the box, to save the princess, to save the orphanage, to save the only dairy cow that the small Thorpe has. It's a check mark in a list of good deeds.
Okay. I mean, I do track the player's deeds, good or bad. I do actually take note of that. Even if I'm not using that slider scale that I'd come up with years ago. I do track when they do good things and when they do bad things. I'm not going to say one good deed nullifies a bad deed. No, they don't nullify each other at all. They just keep adding up. Now, when a player's character dies, in a game, and they're upset about it, I'm like, okay, well, be ready next week with a new character. However, let's go out for a beer or something afterward and have a chat about your character's final reward, if they get a reward or a torment. Because I've tallied up their good and bad deeds. I know where they stand with their patron. I know where they stand. So at the end of all things, when the character dies, I'm either, acting as their patron, like, hey, welcome to your afterlife. Congratulations, you've made it. Those were some really good things you did. Or I might be in the role of, hey, I noticed you were a complete and evil twat. I liked that. I'm going to put you to work, and you're not going to like it. Because they did a lot more bad things than they did good things. So now they're, an imp or a hell spawn, in the hells, and they're forced to do labor and whatnot, and they're tortured for the rest of their, soul's existence. I will role play that out, after the session ends, after the character has died, because to me, I think that is important for the player to have like that final, oh, that's what it all meant for my character. Yeah, that's where your character ended.
Now,
that was their final reward or final torment.
Correct me if I'm wrong. In older D&D, it was basically mandatory for your character to believe in a god. It didn't matter what god.
No.
It was never mandatory.
It was mandatory. If you hold on.
That was
that's a little horseshit. No,
I know.
Hold on. Let me finish. If your D&D character did not believe in a god and it died, it was sent to the wall, where a demon or demons can make deals with them, and they normally have a very, as Jay put it, a very bad ending to the story. But there was no such thing as atheists in D&D.
That's not true at all.
There are.
Yeah, that was never. I've never seen that written anywhere.
Okay.
Whether it be first, second, even OD&D, I don't think ever stated that like that.
Because I know.
But it
because
never
I know.
Was like,
go ahead.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Because I know where you started playing D&D, because I was there for your first few games. The person who told you that wanted everybody in their game to have religion of some kind. He was also
it wasn't that guy. It's somebody
wasn't
you know, but it wasn't him.
I'll have to think about that then. But generally speaking, most of the game masters you and I have had within our area are either religious in some context, or everybody of the world has religion, or you are persecuted to the ends of the earth. That was very much a holdover as well from like medieval concepts of, oh, you're not religious, oh, you must be a witch, we're going to burn you at the stake now, or you're a heretic or whatnot, pick your flavor. So that's kind of where that comes from.
Just curious. Like I said, it was the way it was presented to me was in old school D&D. If you didn't believe and your character died, it went straight to the wall. And that's
There's only one wall I know of, and it defeats them all. James, thank you. Brian says, I've played where the DM hands out your alignment after the session of your deeds in a game. I like that, but at the same time, I would much rather the player characters start with something that they want to personify.
Start with a goal.
And then Big Bad, welcome to the show. I don't believe I've seen you before, but like I said, welcome to the show. Justin, what's happening? And I want to get to Deej also. Glad you've been hanging out. I want to get to the next couple of questions because there's only a few more, and I think we might actually make it if we don't get too sidetracked. Next one is, if alignments were removed entirely from all fantasy games, what percentage of players do you think would run anything other than selfish murder hobos? Just give me a number.
40%.
How much?
40.
40% would not run murder hobos.
Would run more for 40% would run murder hobos, and 60% would still try to be the gallant good guy.
I want to say it's probably one. Okay, mine's multifaceted. One, it depends on how long have they been playing the game, in the hobby in general, even if without alignments in the thing. Two, what influences them to want to play an RPG to begin with? Because generally that's going to set their mindset of whether they're a murder hobo or whether they're the valiant hero. So those two things combined, like, I would say for people of my age or older, I would say probably 80-90% of them would not resort to murder hobo unless they met a very adversarial game master. People of my age or below my age, I would say that the trend is probably heavier tilted towards murder hobo, because either they haven't read what alignments are or don't care, and they're just in it for instant gratification. That's the other aspect of it, is the instant gratification of being able to do something and feel powerful like that. That was my introduction into the hobby, was build something, and that's right, the word build came into play. Build something powerful and feel powerful. Like, that was my introduction to the hobby as a whole, and this was back during the very first few years of 3.0. I have since learned from my younger murder hoboist ways and my min-maxing ways. It took a while. It took a long while, an embarrassingly long while to get here. But as a player who has had 25 years of experience within the hobby, I can see what I was, and I can see where I want to get to. And I'm still not quite there yet. I want to get to the point where stats to me don't matter. Having the most powerful character to me doesn't matter. It's my character's journey to me that matters. It's the things I do along the way and the experiences I have with the character along the way that are going to matter more than what I defeated. And that is where I want to get to.
Good for you. Personally, I think it's about 25%, if that. There are so many people out there playing RPGs. The numbers are massive, and I hear more about the murder hobos than I hear about the good guys when it comes to numbers. Now, most of the people in our circle of friends are all, for the most part, in that 25% category. And as time goes on, I think those numbers are going to dwindle. We're going to lose some really great gamers out there as time goes by, and it's unfortunate. So if you've got some old gamer friends out there, enjoy the time you have with them, and do whatever you can to enjoy, or I should say, get to play with them more often. You will miss them when they're gone. I hope, unless you're a murder hobo, then you won't care. The second to last question is often a little bit of a different direction. It's, why do you think most sci-fi games do not use an alignment system or rules? And Conall, I know you don't play a lot of sci-fi games, but maybe you'll have something to add to this. I'm going to have to go with you first, Jade, because I know you have played many sci-fi RPGs.
So of the sci-fi RPGs I have played, most of them had some form of morality in them. Okay. Starfinder has a morality system. It's basically Pathfinder. Dragonstar uses 3.0 rules, 3.0 rules, so it also has a morality-based system. But games like Index Card RPG have no morality system. And, you know, the Warp Shell of it, the sci-fi series of it, you know. But as far as like, why do sci-fi games not have alignment? Because they have morality or humanity. Like Cyberpunk has, I believe, a humanity rating. Granted, it's more dependent upon how many cybernetic implants or upgrades you have that reduces your humanity. And when you lose your humanity, you go cyber psycho, and you basically become lost to the machine. And you'll do horrible atrocities because you've quite literally lost your mind. And in a more modern game such as World of Darkness, you have, again, morality or humanity instead of a hard alignment system. It's more flexible. And I think that's because in sci-fi games, it's more about actually, I can't really say this as truth, but to me, sci-fi games are more about the experience, go forth adventuring, go seek out new life civilizations, the Star Trek method, or fight the power, rise up against the evil megacorps, be a freedom fighter. So to me, I think it's more for the sci-fi about morality and humanity than it is about strict alignments.
Good night, Grandma. Jade, Flady's got an open spot if you're interested in learning some Palladium and the Palladium alignment system. Otherwise, I'll have to try to get you a photocopy of because it's like 1 or 2 pages, and it really does the old alignment system, some justice by trying to codify it a little more. Sean, welcome to the show. Cal, welcome to the show.
Yeah, we're going a little backwards in time here. Not far though.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep.
Sci-fi. I have nothing against sci-fi. Most people I play with don't do sci-fi, except for rarely, and it's once again it's normally fantasy or the sci-fi games I have played might as well be fantasy because you have lightsabers and space magic and Jedis and all the evil stuff that goes along with the Sith. So it's really more like space fantasy, realistically. But it's considered sci-fi, so what the hell do I know?
That's all fantasy, but yeah.
Now, Star Wars, the game, does have an alignment system in it. Sith points and I can't remember what the good points are called, but the bad ones were Sith. So I think it just really depends on the game. As Jade put it, humanity is replaced alignment per se. And there's nothing wrong with that. I get that. I can understand the concept of it. But I don't think you need alignment. Here's the thing. Bad guys are bad guys. It's a job of the DM to determine, to tell the players who the bad guy is, to describe who the bad guy is by action or by wordage or by deed. So if you take away all the sci-fi, all the fantasy, dragons, mind flayers, Kool-Aid, and go into space, I think it still applies. Romulans are still Romulans, Borg are still Borg, the Sith Lords are still the Sith Lords. A player should be able to determine who the good guy is and who the bad guy is, and who's the poor schmuck in the middle. So our alignment. Go for it.
Okay.
I think it's just putting an extra gear into a machine that to make it run smoothly is actually kind of clogged up the machine. So space or fantasy, I don't think it's really needed. I think it's just it needs a good DM to let the players know who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, and who's the poor schmuck in the middle.
Well, mechanically speaking, on humanity or morality in sci-fi games, the way it's used, or way it should be used, in my humble opinion, is if you're playing in a sci-fi game and you have a morality rating or a vice and virtue and or humanity, whatever the case might be, you should be playing to that morality. Like, you should be doing things that is consistent with that morality, because that is who your character is at their core. Like, that, that is what drives them. That's what, keeps them going. They might be the romantic hopeful, hoping for a better place in society, hoping for, a better future for everyone. That, they might be that lost, hopeful, or they might be the sadistic, runner who is all in it just for themselves. Like, that is part of the character. It's part of who they are and what makes them them. And it's not necessarily as mechanical, but it should be reminded to the players from the game master, like, hey, are you playing within your morality? Are you playing within your humanity or your vice or virtue? Keep in mind, in World of Darkness games, if you play to your virtues or play to your vices, you might gain certain rewards, for playing to your virtue or vice. And they might be small things. They might be little bonuses here or there. Especially for the vice. The vice might give you an instant bonus if you play to it for that scene. Whereas if you play to your virtue instead, it might give you a better bonus because you played to your virtue instead of your lesser base. And that is going to give you a better bonus in a specific scene. Like, if you're a person who is very merciful and will always reach down a hand to somebody to help them up, and you do that in the right scene, you are going to get bonuses. Well, you probably should get bonuses from the game master. Oh yeah, you know what? Your next roll, instead of being a difficulty 6, I'm going to lower it to a difficulty 5. Get however many successes. Like, that would be an example in a WAD game that I would use. Like, I would just arbitrarily rules, like, oh, you know what? You played to your virtue. That's really awesome. I really appreciate that. And to show my appreciation and to reward you for playing to your virtue, I'm going to, make things a little less difficult for you. So, I mean, and that's just, the way I would use it.
This is one of my favorite comments of the evening. Alignment doesn't even matter unless you're going to, as a GM, start bestowing upon them rewards or consequences for it. Well said. I think you win the summed it all up nice and succinctly award tonight. For me, with sci-fi games, I think the reason for the original classics like Traveler and Star Frontiers, they're not actually being or even needing an alignment system was because in a sci-fi setting, a hard sci-fi setting, you're already assumed all to be the good guys, and you are innocent until proven guilty. And by that I mean, if you start going out of your way to be evil, then that's going to catch up with you, believe it or not, quicker than it would in a D&D situation. You start, being the schmuck or the murderer or the pickpocket or the thief or the guy the rest of the people can't trust. They're going to shove your ass out an airlock quicker than shit, and on to making a new character. And, in Traveler, it only takes about 5 minutes, maybe 10, depending on, how in depth you want to get with your terms of service. And the entire universe is out to get you. And the only thing you have are those people at the table to back you up, unless you, throughout the course of play, create some contact, create some friends, things like that. It actually, believe it or not, encourages, I think, players to be more of the hero without all the superpowers and the magic and all that other stuff. I mean, unless you're playing a superhero game, in which case there really is no better example of the good guys in some cases, for me at least, my experience. But sci-fi really, I think, actually brings out, more character and more individuality and more goodness, because depending on the situation, it's entirely on you how you're going to deal with it. You aren't actually being told you have to be good or you have to be evil. It's entirely on you. How do you want to be? How do you want to be perceived by everybody at the table? Because that's really, all that matters. Do you want your friends to be able to count on you, or do you want your friends to be, constantly side eyeing you and wondering what you're, why are you passing the GM another note? You wanted to say something, Conall?
It's technically not my story, but it's one of my favorite stories. It kind of does with alignment. Now, we have a player who's playing a rogue, and because he's playing a rogue and the rest of the party are good, at least but that's what the alignment says there, they think he deserves less because he's a rogue, because he's breaking the law by stealing what. So anytime loot is given out, he gets less than everybody else, and everybody's kind of being pious towards him. To one night, when he got tired of their self-righteousness, he passed the DM a note. The note says, I kill all the other players' characters while they sleep.
You got it, lady.
So the next morning, the DM is like, well, everybody, except for a character, everybody, I need you to make new characters. But why? Because the moral of the story is, don't be a dick to another player.
I mean, I had I was at a table once where I was playtesting the ninja class for Pathfinder 1E.
Oh god.
And I couldn't make it to the game one night, and one of the players, and my character wasn't even evil. Like, he was just I can't remember. He was on assignment to be with the group. I guess one of the players took offense to me playing a ninja and decided to kill my character in his sleep while I wasn't at the table. Yeah. I don't know what the reason beyond that was. They just decided to, I guess, kick me from the table. The player did, whatever. I eventually rejoined the table when that player left for a different game. So,
yeah, well, that was a dick.
Yeah, well.
Well, I'm being nice.
It's in the past.
Yeah, well.
So.
But even, I guess my thing is alignments are important. I will say that alignments depends on how the DM wants to run his game and the people at the table. Alignments are important. But just because somebody's not the same alignment as you, it being, chaotic neutral to lawful good, does not mean you have the right to be a dick. To be good by nature is to be good, to be patient, to be understanding, not a self-righteous douchebag. And that's why I don't like paladins.
You haven't been with the right ones, apparently.
Well, yeah, I would. So, having been at several of the tables he's been in, I can see where he's coming from, because a lot of the people who played the paladins were playing the self-righteous, self-centered paladin type, who is all about the, you must serve God, you must do this, like always being, you must do something, must be for the greater good. So I can see your point of view on that. My counter to that is find a group that has a paladin who is more like more about the mercy aspect of being of elevating people around them, rather than leading people, leading or trying to force people their direction. Because the more a paladin who elevates the people around him, the more they're going to actually want to help that paladin and move along the path he is on.
I will agree with that. Lead by example.
Welcome to the show, Mar. I have one last question. Wow. Wind
that
is
the wind?
whipping up. Yeah, that is the wind here. It is pretty crazy here. I am also on the second story of our place.
Now
So
remember, Shadow. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
Don't forget your ruby slippers.
and James, sci-fi speaks really highly of you, Connell. I don't know. Welcome to the show, my brother. How you doing, James? I just
My
saw you
favorite
a while
hero.
ago over in Fritz's channel. I wonder where Fritz is. Probably still painting away.
Painting.
Yeah, probably.
I like the anti-hero. That's really my jam. If I could find a campaign where allows to embrace the anti-hero.
Well, here's the thing. There could only be one in a good story. But the current trend now is that everybody wants to be them, and nobody wants to be the good guy. The good guy, the properly played paladin, is about to become the new punk rock because of the way the gamers are in general. I stopped playing those kinds of characters decades ago because there's literally nothing but those kinds of players. Entire parties of edgelords are roaming the countryside now, and it's become so trite and boring that partially because it's easy. I think in reality it truly is hard to play the paladin. That's why that's why when I was playing with you, Connell, that's what I wanted to play. The hardest thing to play, the most challenging, because it is so very, very easy to play everything else, with exception to an actual good bard. So with that, I'm going to bump into my last question, which kind of ties into what we were just talking about. Do you think running or playing an actual hero or a character with morals, ethics, values, and principles is only an ancient relic of a bygone era, that being fantasy role-playing games, or do you think it will ever make a comeback?
I think people are still playing those type of characters. I think people are still playing the type of characters you're talking about, the King Arthur and his round table type players. I think that me, you, Jade, and most of us only get a small sample of what role games look like at game shops compared to what we hear from places that really don't matter like Twitter. Twitter's not a real place. Stop getting your information from Twitter.
What's Twitter? What's Twitter?
Right.
Twatter.
Water.
Yeah.
But as a whole, I think people still want to play the heroes, to play the Harry Dresden, the King Arthur, maybe not Merlin. Merlin was a dick. But wanting to actually
Depending on the story.
Yeah, wants to be the Lord of the Rings Fellowship. I mean, I love the meme out there that shows when a party first get together, they're the Lord of the Rings pitch are all serious. We're out to go do good. And by the end of the campaign, you got the Monty Python search for the Holy Grail, because people are people. But that doesn't subtract the fact that people naturally want to be good, naturally want to be the good guy. It is hammered out of people, if it's not society but by nature, to do evil, to be the bad guy. Nobody wants to be a bad guy. Even bad guys don't see themselves as being bad guys. They're the only one not crazy in a crazy world. So
Same here, Plady.
When you say stuff like, when you make comments that bygone age, I don't think the bygone age is truly ever ended. If it has ended, we wouldn't get stories that we have now, the most recent stories that we get in literature or movies. I think people still want to be the big damn hero.
Yeah, but
you're right.
So I agree that everyone wants to be the hero. Everyone is the hero of their own story. At least that's the way it always has been. Even the villains are the hero of their own story. Unless they're just truly diabolical, then they're not really heroes. But I do hope for at least the hobby that when players come to the table, they want to play a hero or, an adventurer, who's in it for like the experience of going on an epic adventure. Even if they don't want to be, even if they're the reluctant hero, like that's fine.
Bilbo
But
Baggins.
I really want to see an end to the edgelord. Like I've played my fair share of edgelords. I get the
That was the
appeal.
original
Like,
edgelord.
like
I made up. I
I
did it all.
understand the appeal. Especially when you have films like John Wick or Batman or other edgy heroes who do ridiculously dark things. Like I understand the want to emulate that because you might have some kind of darkness going on in your current life. I get it. Like I said, I've been there. But I really hope for the players who have played edgelords that they have a chance to play a hero more in the light, more in the category of your King Arthurs, of your Lancelots, of
I want to say Lancelot too loud. He's an adulteress.
yeah, but he was still a hero. He was still one of the heroic heroes of the Arthurian legends.
Definitely between
Even so. But I mean, I would rather see more people play, characters that are, morally good and doing good things, not for themselves, but for those around them. Like, I think there is a lot of potential to play those kinds of characters. However, it requires both the player and the game master to be on the same page. The game master should not take advantage of those players doing those things. Like, reward your players for playing good characters and reward them for good role playing. Not just for, kicking in the door and killing everything that moves. Reward them for the things that are not just that. Reward them with, interacting with the kings and nobles of your fantasy realm. Reward them for interacting with, other edge runners or other, groups of beings, for the same cause and goal, even if they might be adversaries at one time.
Yeah.
Well, personally, I hope it will make a comeback. I think it will. I think there's plenty of people who like this comment from Flatey. Edgelord, Lone Wolf, Anti-Hero, these are all part of the learning process of a gamer's life progression. I think it's necessary for some, and then they need to grow out of it into something new. I think that is especially true now, where there are so many people, not because the game is great, but because there are just that many people on the planet that are just discovering the game and have to go through the evolution of the learning curve. I think every one of us, to one extent or another, has played the Wolverine, the Punisher, the Batman character, and will find that after you've run that course, after you've gone from point A to point Z along that natural progression, you will hopefully outgrow that. It's almost like a part of adolescence, and that you will realize that those people are constantly suffering, and unless you too wish to continue and revel in that kind of misery, it's better and healthier and a whole hell of a lot more fun to move past that. I for one would much rather play a character that is always hopeful than always miserable and distrusting. Sure, playing the hopeful type of person will get stabbed in the back, hopefully, just once, because then you're dead and you can make a new character. But I'd rather go through life and especially a game thinking that that it's worthwhile. I've been reading some books Sorry, James L. But we're gonna have a talk about that recommendation of yours of games that are so dark and ugly. One in particular where, can you imagine this? An entire star-spanning galaxy with spaceships and all the stuff, right?
Oh,
That is
God.
so that's so ugly and miserable throughout the entire galaxy that nowhere in that galaxy is art even a thing anymore. No one creates art. Can you imagine what a miserable existence? I would roll up a character and then slit my own wrists because that was the best it was ever going to get.
No, the best is ever
Are
going to
we
be.
talking about Warhammer 40K?
No, we're
we are
talking about
not.
Death in Space.
No, we're not.
Okay.
No,
Oh,
not
really?
even that.
That's a miserable. I like it, but I don't mind the misery.
Right, but
Because
how much
Warhammer
misery?
40K sounds about like that too.
No, I know Warhammer 40K actually has art. Art is actually a
Oh,
thing.
you're right. Yeah.
The
Art
Gothic
and
style, but
killing
Unless
imagine
you're
a
called a
fight.
heretic for making it.
Well,
Right,
if it's
right.
fantasy, it's art and killing the rat creatures because those guys are little bastards.
Justin, I'll tell you about it later because I don't even want to give them any sort of. I don't want people buying the book.
Oh.
Buy it.
Let me rephrase that. I'm going to do a review on it because it has some good stuff to offer.
Oh, there
But
it is.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine wanting to be in something so dark. Because James L. also brought up you have to have the contrast. You have to have the good. You have to have the dark. If there's nothing but darkness, well, then what's the draw? What is literally the draw? Just like being in a Care Bear Monty Hall game, that famous Twilight Zone episode where the guy, dies and thinks he's in heaven because everything's going his way, finds out that no, that's just as, go watch the episode. I want the contrast. I want the good. I want the dark. I want the light. I want the good, the evil. It's all got to be there. If it's only one-sided, if your spectrum is not a spectrum, it's just pure darkness, ugliness, evil, etc., then what's the point? You can't win. You will eventually get crushed for it.
Well, wasn't that the first two seasons of Star Trek Next Generation? All the wars have ended. This is now the utopia that Gene Roddenberry.
Oh no, the evil and the evil communist wokeism was just better hidden than it had ever been hidden before.
I will say I've had a game like you're describing, Shadow, where the players actually came from a world that, and I've said it earlier this evening, players came from a world that knew peace, at least had known peace for the last 10 years after the last war had ended. And they were transported to a world where everyone knew nothing but war for the last 10 years because that, it was a mirror universe world where the coin flip that decided the fate of the two worlds being different was the end of the war in the one world. And the players who came over from the world of light, they knew about the hopefulness of the end of a war. They knew about the possibility of peace. So that's what they fought for. They were fighting in a world that was so twisted and dark and overrun with evil and just war that's what they were fighting to end. They were fighting to end the war and bring about an era of peace again. And that game unfortunately fell apart because players went their separate ways. But that game, the heroes of that story, I can still remember most of their names, most of the character names. That's also the one where I had the paladin who decided to just execute a person who'd thrown down his weapon. But it was just it is an interesting game, and I would love to do it again, but I'd have to figure out how to do it better than I did last time.
I very much would love for you to do it again. That is a game where I wasn't playing the Paladin, but me and the Paladin were having a complete Boondock Saints moment. You had it being on its knee. We both had guns. Emia Patres and boom. Well, here's the rub. Above board, I knew that Pit Fiends blew up. My character, well, didn't.
Yep, that was quite the mistake you made.
But I
You
stayed
paid for
in
it.
character and I survived.
Yeah.
No worries, James. We will
Anyway.
we will talk about it later before I rip it a new one on camera. But yeah,
we can't rip anything. We cannot rip anything a new one until after tomorrow, because Bruce, we're talking about good old Brucey boy tomorrow.
Oh yes, tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. Nice segue into the end of the episode. You guys all gave me a lot of food for thought, and I'm not going to say you guys changed my mind a lot, but definitely a couple of points here and there, and gave me some hope for the future. Until then, though, I'm going to continue, trying to learn and grow and play as many games as possible as I can with as many of you great, wonderful individuals, and you too, Conall.
Hey, I know exactly who I am. I am an asshole with little bitty sprinkles of confetti of kindness. I'm very self-aware of the type of person you're dealing with.
You'll always be my little brother. Don't you worry about it. And Jade, thank you guys so much for playing along tonight. Couldn't have done it without you, because that would have been boring as hell. Conall?
One last thing. Now, this is something I think people should think about. When saving the princess from the dragon, one could consider the White Knight, because he is often the one off training the dragon to steal the princess. It's the Black Knight that one should trust. The Black Knight who is the most honest in the kingdom. The Black Knight who should be your friend. I'm a twisted fuck. I know this.
Honestly, I think you should have as many friends as you can, and it's always nice to have one of those friends in low places. Trust me, I used to be just that guy, but that's a story for another time. When Jackie's at least 4 more years older, you know what I'm saying? Yes, thanks again, everybody in chat. You guys are all fantastic. We had, just so many wonderful comments, and it's a wonder I could keep up with them. And I see someone already bailed before I actually say goodnight. Whoever you are, I hope whatever it is you're rushing off to is as good as I can imagine it being. And for those of you who stayed to the bitter end, thank you so much. Okay, sorry, I had to read. You're still hitting me with all of these, man.
Oh,
Black
Kyle,
Knight,
you're absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Princess sleeping with the dragon. Love it. Might steal that.
Sure. It's entirely possible. You never know.
In some editions, dragons
polymorph is a spell.
Everything. Yeah, some editions, dragons can breed with everything. And some things they really shouldn't.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
So, Jade, you got anything going on this week before tomorrow? Or at all this week to start tomorrow?
So tomorrow, nothing really happening this week. I'm going to be prepping a game store one shot for one of my local game stores. I've already talked it over with the proprietor of the store. So he's going to be posting it in his store to see what kind of interest there is. So I'm going to be working on a one shot for that. I think I've already got all my notes done. I just need to get all the maps ready. So.
How about you, Conall?
Well, other than tomorrow, because we did kind of bring up what we're all doing tomorrow. Poor Brucey.
No, not at all. He did a wonderful job.
Sunday, no. This coming, I think it's this Saturday. I could be wrong. I think this coming Saturday, I have Bruce's campaign. Then Sunday. Me, Shadow, Gentleman Jack, in theory, because he was too good to be with us last week. Omanau and Mark will be talking about the I don't remember, classic with good old Chucky Boy, the 10 Commandments. And as of right now, I am judging the movie by how many shots of whiskey I have to take. And so far, I'm 3 deep. So I don't know if this is a good thing. I don't know if this is a bad thing, but thou shall not get drunk before watching this movie is not on the 10 Commandments list.
Have you never seen the 10 Commandments?
No, I have a life. It's like, hey, did you ever play Warcraft back in high school? No, I was having sex. What's wrong with you?
Fair enough.
Bunch of gamers like, what's that? Warcraft?
I never played World of Warcraft. I was too busy raising a boy who was playing World of Warcraft. No, he's playing Minecraft. And as for me, obviously I'll be hanging out with Bruce and Conall later this week. Thursday, I'm not sure what I'm doing. I am looking to possibly do another one-on-one on Friday, but I'm trying to iron out the details with a certain someone to get them on and just have a nice one-on-one conversation so you guys will get to know that person. But just in case I'm not able to do it, I'll find some other excuse to bother you guys online and eat up some of your time, for which we are very grateful that you shared it with us tonight. I hope you guys all have a wonderful week and weekend. Believe it or not, spring is actually coming. It is around the corner. We just got to get through this crazy long winter. It's around the corner. It's still raining here.
Here 3 days ago. Don't promise me something and piss on my leg telling me it's rain.
Yes, you've had 4 winters, yes. What about 5th winter?
So have a great evening, guys. We will see you guys real soon. I gotta hit the road. I gotta do some people things. But
Bang, shovel,
thanks again. We love you guys, and good night.